lower GI bleeding, it will be in two parts. The first part will be done by Janani, where she'll be talking about the introduction, various etiological factors, and the evaluation of lower GI bleed. And the next individual causes for lower GI bleeding and its management will be dealt in the next class by Dr. Ajit. So I request Janani to take over.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about lower gastrointestinal bleeding, the introduction and how we are going to approach the case. So lower gastrointestinal bleeding is a bleeding from source distal to ligament of Treitz. First, yes, any of you can answer what is ligament of Treitz? Indraja or Pavan or Madan, whoever is.
Janani, you have to be specific. You ask one by one.
Sir, Indraja, can you answer?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, what is ligament of Treitz?
It is a fold of peritoneum, ma'am, that attaches a viscera to the peritoneum, ma'am.
It is a suspensory ligament of
Yes.
duodenum. Okay.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
at the DJ flexure, it will suspend it is a fold of peritoneum suspending at the DJ flexure.
Yes.
So it is the point bleeding from the source distal to ligament of Treitz is lower GI bleed, and acute over GI bleed accounts for 20% of all gastrointestinal bleeding. So the most patients have favorable outcome. But morbidity and mortality are increased in elderly and those with associated comorbidities. However, this lower GI bleeding required admission, invasive in diagnostic evaluations, and it consumes significant medical resources. And estimated hospitalization rates ranges from 33 to 87% per 10,000 population, and mortality rate is 2.5 to 3.9%, and rebleeding rates ranges from 13 to 19% according to literature. The most common etiology in our country, it includes non-specific ulcers, enteric ulcers, neoplasm, TB ulcers, angiodysplasia, and amoebic ulcers. And the rare causes are colorectal polyp, post-polypectomy bleeding, diverticulitis, colitis, and inflammatory bowel disease. But diverticulitis and colitis are more common in Western world. So first we'll have to decide whether the patient require admission or not. And this scoring system, Auckland scoring system, helps us to decide if the patient require admission. That is whether the patient is in high risk category or low risk category. If the predictors like age, gender, previous lower GI bleed, admission, or DRE findings, heart rate, BP, systolic BP, and hemoglobin, according to this scoring system, if the scoring is less than or equal to 8, we'll call patient is in low risk, and we could manage the patient in OPD basis. And if the scoring is more than 8, we'll admit the patient and we'll evaluate them further, and we'll keep the patient in admission for further monitoring. Patient will present with sudden onset of hematochezia, that is frank bleeding per rectum, or melena, that is black tarry stool. The hematochezia can be seen in brisk upper GI bleeding also. So patients presenting with hematochezia along with hemodynamics instability, first we search for upper GI bleeding also. Approximately 15% of patients with presumed lower GI bleed ultimately found to have upper GI bleeding source also.
Janani, hold on. There
Yes,
is a
sir.
question in the chat box.
Yes, sir.
From Dr. Mahesh. Okay, he's asking, are bleeding from hemorrhoids and fissure not considered to as lower GI bleed?
Sir, it is considered, sir, but the anorectal bleeding is discussed separately, sir. So I haven't mentioned anything about the hemorrhoid and fissure in my presentation.
Why is it considered separate?
Sir, because in some literature it is not included, sir. It is separately, it is discussed.
Because its management is totally different from
Yes, sir.
management of anal bleeding like hemorrhoids and fissure is totally different from management
Lower
of bleeding
GI
from any other causes like small bowel and large bowel.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So although technically it is considered as lower GI bleeding only, so we are not going into the discussion of that, especially anal canal bleeding.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Mahesh sir, anything else you wanted to know?
No, that's fine, actually, because when she mentioned hereditary conditions and solitary rectal ulcer, there was no mention about hemorrhoids and fissures. So I just wanted a clarification.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, ma. Okay, you can continue.
So goals of our management includes first we should evaluate the patient thoroughly. Hemodynamic resuscitation has to be done. Risk stratification.
Janani, hold on.
Yes, sir.
Dayanand sir wants to know what are the medical causes.
Sir, I'm going to tell them, sir.
Okay.
Sir, I'm going to tell them in my future slides, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Carry
sir.
on.
And management of anticoagulant or antiplatelet agents, use of diagnostic or therapeutic tool, use of non-colonoscopic diagnostic and therapeutic tools, prevention of recurrence and role of repeat colonoscopy for recurrent events. First we should start with history, nature and duration of bleeding, pain abdomen or diarrhea and altered bowel habits to rule out colitis, and any history of weight loss to rule out malignancy. Additionally, we should also ask for tiredness, weakness, giddiness, nausea, vomiting, dyspepsia, bloating or fever history. In past history, we should ask for any similar.
Hold on. Pawan, if he is there, go back to the previous slide. Yeah, no, the same slide. Sorry. The same slide. Why do you think weight loss? What is the other possibilities of if the patient has weight loss history apart from malignancy?
Tuberculosis, sir.
Tuberculosis is one. Anything else? Patient has, if he has long-standing colitis, they also have weight loss.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Carry on.
Yes, sir. So any previous histories like vascular surgeries or abdominal surgeries, peptic ulcer disease, inflammatory bowel disease history, or any radiation therapy, previous history of radiation, we should rule out. And we should ask for associated comorbidities like cardiac, pulmonary, renal, hepatic disease, and drug history, including the NSAIDs like ketoprofen or whether patient is on aspirin or indomethacin.
Hold on. There are a few questions. Janani.
Yes, sir.
Shivaram sir is asking, scoring system, is it feasible or practical? Or is it practiced routinely?
The Auckland scoring system, sir.
Any scoring system. There are many scoring systems.
Yes, sir.
So Shivaram sir's question is it feasible or is it being practiced everywhere routinely?
Sir, I don't think we are practicing it, sir. Mostly for whenever patient presents with lower GI bleed, we need to admit them for monitoring. We'll monitor them for 20.
Question is very specific. Monitoring is a different question.
Yes, sir.
So it's generally not practiced everywhere. Why? Because they have tried to validate different scoring systems, and none of the scoring systems have proved to be very accurate in terms of predicting the outcomes as well as predicting the necessary for admissions,
Yes,
especially with lower GI bleeding.
Yes, sir.
Shivaram sir, anything else?
No, that's true, because postgraduate should not get the impression that scoring is done and then admitted. Scoring is not done for this admission purpose most of the places.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, one more question is history of using anticoagulants. I think you're coming to that.
Yes, sir. I'll be telling.
And Shrikant sir is asking, will TB present as GI bleed?
Which one, sir?
Tuberculosis. Can it present as
GI
bleed?
TB ulcers can present as GI bleed, sir.
Correct. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Continue.
So regarding, yes, sir.
Continue.
Sir? Yes, sir. Regarding this antithrombotics, so these are the mechanism of action of all these drugs. So these antiplatelet drugs, the most commonly used are aspirin and clopidogrel. And here among the NSAIDs, the most commonly used are ibuprofen and indomethacin, which carry low and moderate risk. But the high risk category is ketoprofen because of longer half-life. And these are the direct oral acting anticoagulants that is in practice now. And these are the newer drugs that are used.
Just hold on.
Yes, sir.
To all the PGs, anybody can answer. Is NSAID is anything different with respect to upper GI bleeding and lower GI bleeding? Hari,
No, sir.
you don't know?
No, sir.
Ajit?
Sir, I didn't get your question.
No, the use of NSAID is causing GI bleeding. Okay, is there any difference between upper GI bleeding and lower GI bleeding? She has given certain NSAIDs, no, lowest risk, moderate risk, and highest risk. Anybody else, any other PGs can answer that? Okay, if nobody can, so usually they say in upper GI bleeding, COX-2 inhibitors are better than other NSAIDs, which has lesser possibilities of GI bleeding. However, with respect to lower GI bleeding, that is not found to be true. So all NSAIDs can produce GI bleeding, including the COX-2 inhibitors.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Continue.
Yes, sir. So examination. First, we'll do general examination. We'll see whether the patient is conscious.
One more question is there.
Yes, sir.
Does lower GI bleed present as hematemesis?
No, sir. Upper GI bleed can present as hematochezia, but no, sir, I'm not sure.
Mahesh, sir?
Some proximal, small bowel bleeding in between the ligament of Treitz can sometimes present as upper GI bleeding, which can be confusing. Yes, a thorough evaluation would help to diagnose whether it is upper GI or lower GI.
And there is one more question. What is obscure bleed?
Sir, obscure GI bleed is when the bleeding is when the cause of bleeding is not detected even after thorough endoscopic or lower GI like colonoscopic evaluation, sir.
So obscure GI bleed is in spite of all available modalities, you evaluate and you don't find the exact source of bleeding.
Etiology.
Okay, so that is called as obscure GI bleed. What is importance of family history? Ajit is asking.
Family history.
You know or you don't know?
No, sir.
Ajit? Ajit?
Sir, there are like few syndromes that are associated this one. Gardner syndrome, then HNPCC, familial adiposis, yeah, that will have if multiple polyps will be there in the colon, which can give rise to lower GI bleeding. Chances of turning into carcinoma is 100% in FAP. And one more syndrome is the Turcot syndrome, sir, also. Yes, sir.
Ajit, I don't think polyposis coli present with colonic bleed. So I think it may be
more so if they have undergone polypectomy. Not. I agree with Ravi Shankar, sir.
Far-fetched idea. Janani, when you put up the list of all the causes for GI bleed, did you put GIST there? Gastrointestinal stromal tumor.
Put up as malignancies or neoplasm. She has not mentioned separately GIST.
GIST should be mentioned because GIST is the tumor which causes significant GI bleed as opposed to colonic tumors. They bleed slowly. They can cause anemia. You don't see significant or catastrophic GI bleed with the tumors, with the malignant tumors, but with GIST tumors you can. So you should mention it separately.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
There is one more question from Dayanand Nuli, sir. What is dark continent of intestine? Janani, you can answer?
No, sir. Small intestine. Small intestine, sir.
Yes. Why?
Because by colonoscopy, we won't be able to evaluate it either through endoscopy or colonoscopy completely, sir.
So you require specialized instrumentation like double value enteroscopy,
yes, sir.
which is very difficult.
Yes, sir.
Murali sir, anything else?
No, sir. Correct, sir. She can go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. And Mahesh sir is commented, according to UK guidelines, as Dr. Shivram mentioned, the Oakland score is a weak recommendation with moderate quality evidence. And Srikanth sir is asking, is obscure bleed and occult bleed are the same?
No, sir. Obscure bleeding, occult bleeding is when bleeding is not visible to either to physician or patient. We call it occult GI bleed. But obscure GI bleeding is when we were not able to evaluate what is the cause of rule out what is the cause of bleeding. We call it obscure GI bleed.
Okay. Srikanth sir, you agree with that?
No, I didn't know that. I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Continue.
Yes, sir. So during physical examination, we'll be checking the vitals, which are very important in GI bleeding cases, like BP, heart rate, saturation, and respiratory rate. We'll have to do thorough cardiopulmonary, abdominal, and digital rectal examination. Initially, we'll ask the patient to undergo complete blood count, serum electrolytes.
Wait. You generally broadly said that you have to monitor vitals. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Can Dr. Vanitha, can you say what when do you get alarmed by all these vital signs? What is the threshold? Pulse rate, BP. Vanitha?
Sir, BP. Yes, sir. Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, BP, if it is less, exactly, I don't know, sir.
Okay. Anybody else? What the PGs are? Dr. Ritika?
Good evening, sir.
Yeah. Good evening.
Sir, I'm not sure, but sir, if blood pressure is decreasing and if pulse rate is increasing, sir, so I'm not sure.
What do you mean by increasing? What are the alarming signs of this thing, pulse rate and BP? Yeah.
Above
Pawan?
120, sir.
Pawan?
Sir,
Pawan is there?
tachycardia, sir. Hypertension.
What do you mean by
Sir, tachycardia and
be very specific. Indraja?
Sir, I'm not sure, sir. I don't.
Okay. And anyone else? Hari?
Sir, BP less than 90/60, hemoglobin drop less than 7 or 8, and tachycardic, sir, above 100.
What is the 7 or 8? I didn't get you.
Sorry, sir?
You said some 7 or 8.
Hemoglobin range, sir. They
No.
mentioned the
With vitals, we are not come to investigations.
Okay.
Okay. We are talking about vitals monitoring. Patient has come to you with lower GI bleed. You evaluate them in emergency. When do you get alarmed?
Persistent low BP like 90/60, even with resuscitation with IV.
You are not very clear.
Not sure, sir. The persistent low BP less than 90/60 even after managing with IV fluids.
Systolic less than 100, sir.
Systolic
And
less than 110. Who is Ajit? Yes. Okay. And what is the other parameter
tachycardia
in
more
blood
than
pressure
110.
monitoring apart from systolic blood pressure, which is most sensitive?
That's all.
Janani?
Sir, hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sir, systolic BP, if it is less than 110, or if the pulse rate is less than, if it is more than 120, sir.
Janani,
Yes, sir.
Doctor, we spoke about shock recently, and Dr. Lakshman and I, all of us clarified systolic blood pressure is not so sensitive. You have to look
There is one
for
more
mean arterial pressure or diastolic blood pressure.
Okay, sir. Yes,
Mean
sir.
arterial blood pressure. And
Mean
there is one
arterial
more
is more-
indicator. What is it? Postural hypotension.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay, the patient may be stable, BP may be stable in lying down position. If there is postural hypotension, that is one more sensitive indicator that patient requires admission and also resuscitation.
Okay.
Mahesh
Yes,
sir
sir.
wants to come in, I think.
Yeah, I was just going through something. There is a UK guidelines called a shock index. So they have classified stable and unstable GI bleed. Shock
Yes.
index is
What is shock
calculated
index?
by,
Anybody can
yeah,
answer.
yeah, shock index. Can anybody answer?
Sir, heart rate divided by systolic blood pressure,
Yeah,
sir.
very good,
Correct.
very
If
good.
it is more than 1,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's unstable
unstable
GI
patient.
bleed. If it is less than, if it is less, if it is more than 1, unstable. If it is less
Yes, sir.
than 1, it is stable. You can manage accordingly.
Okay, sir.
It's a simple algorithm where you can apply it while you are seeing your patient in the ER, and also not much of calculation is required. So it will give a rough idea about how to manage this patient.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Good.
So shock index, you remember actually. Yeah.
Yes,
Sir,
sir.
can I come in?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There is one American Journal of Gastroenterology, 2005 August, sir. He gives 7 indicators for this GI bleeding, either upper or lower. One is increased heart rate, as you told, more than 100. Systolic BP, again 110, less than 110. As you told, syncope. And there is a non-tender abdomen. There will not be any tenderness in the abdomen examination. Rectal bleeding interval of 4 hours. If you get that is the rectal bleeding also we should ask. And meanwhile, use of aspirin or any NSAID drug, and more than 2 comorbid condition. That all is marked in this examination. Sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Niranjan spending too much time on BP, man.
Continue.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That is important. If they don't know the basic, then they won't be able to evaluate.
Yes,
Continue.
sir.
Continue.
Yes, sir. So initially we'll investigate the patients with all these investigations like CBC, electrolytes, and coagulation studies. In that we'll do PT, INR, APTT, blood grouping and cross matching, and serum creatinine and blood urea nitrogen. And severity is assessed by tachycardia, hypotension, as we discussed now, syncope, postural syncope. Ongoing bleeding, there will be gross blood in on digital rectal examination. The comorbid illness like age more than 60 years or past history of diverticulosis or angioectasia has got high risk, they come under high risk categories, and elevated creatinine level, anemia if PC hits hematocrit is less than 35%. So we should suspect upper GI bleed if hematochezia with hemodynamic instability is there, and if elevated Bunn creatinine ratio, it will usually suggest upper GI bleed. And endoscopy is to be done in all such suspected cases. Coming to resuscitation, first we'll resuscitate with crystalloids, that is preferred. And indication of blood transfusion, it includes cardiovascular comorbidities or massive ongoing bleeding in any of our investigation, like any of our evaluations, and delayed therapeutic intervention. If therapeutic intervention is delayed, we could transfuse the patient. And hemoglobin is to be targeted for 7 grams per DL.
Janani, that is not true entirely.
Yes,
Just
sir.
go back. Before that, there is one question from
Yes, sir.
Bayan Modi sir. KFT in upper and lower bleeding.
Sir, which one, sir?
KFT, what it means is renal function test.
Yes, sir.
So in upper and lower GI bleeding. I didn't also get the question, sir. Can you clarify, sir? Noli, sir?
Sir, the KFT in lower GI bleeding and in upper GI bleeding. In
Is
upper
there any-
GI bleeding, it is hampered, but in lower GI bleeding, it is not hampered. Why?
Sir, because in upper GI bleeding, the protein component from the hemoglobin will get absorbed, sir. So the blood urea nitrogen level will be high. Hence, the ratio is high, sir. Bunn creatinine ratio will be elevated in upper GI bleeding. That is what I read,
correct.
sir.
That's
Yes,
correct.
sir.
So that
Yes,
will
sir.
be also indicating you where is the bleeding, roughly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Janani, you are telling that hemoglobin should be targeted for 7 gram per DL.
Yes, sir.
Is it true for all cases, or when is that?
So when the patient has had comorbid conditions like cardiovascular disease, or if massive ongoing bleeding is there, we should target for 7 grams per DL, sir. For all
No,
these
no.
three.
For them, then the target is high. You're telling ulta that if it is if in a lower risk group, non-cardiac group, you can have a lower threshold up to 7 grams. You can, that is, there is something called as restrictive transfusion and liberal transfusion. This targeting of starting the blood transfusion when the hemoglobin is around 7 to 8 is restricted blood transfusion that has proven to be beneficial in certain cases, especially non-cardiac cases who are not unstable. If the patient is unstable and if the patient is having cardiac comorbidities, then you should be targeting the liberal blood transfusion where your target should be between 9 to 10.
Okay.
If
Yes,
the
sir.
hemoglobin is below 9 to 10, you should transfuse blood and you should try to target at least 10 gram per DL for cardiac patients.
Okay. Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Any other questions here, sir, from anyone else? Commonest cause for lower GI bleeding when evaluating a patient from Mahesh, sir.
Sir, most common is non-specific ulcers, sir. After that, in India, it is enteric ulcers. Ulcers are the most common, sir, in India.
Mahesh, sir?
But in Western countries, diverticulitis and colitis are the most common causes.
It's true. Colonic diverticulosis are the commonest cause in most of the papers, actually. Yeah.
That's what the yes, sir.
What was the question? I didn't get the question, Janani.
Question was, what was the most common cause for lower GI bleeding when you are evaluating?
I think the most common cause is angiodysplasia in India and in the Western world. Diverticulosis comes a close second in the Western world, but in India, as I said, ulcers and other things. But
in Indian literature, most of the papers they are quoting it as ulcers, where they can be non-specific or they can be colitis-related ulcers, or it can be enteric ulcers also. Most of the times it will be like either NSAID ulcers or related to antiplatelet agents. As you also said that AV malformation like anything can also produce bleeding in, especially in these renal failure patients.
Yes, sir.
Dayanand Noli sir is asking what is angiodysplasia.
Sir, it is the arteriovenous malformation, sir, which are prone for rupture and bleeding.
Okay. And what is previous 10 from Ajit? I didn't get you, Ajit. You were talking about
the serious hemoglobin thing.
Okay.
Sir?
That one. Cardiovascular system, if some ISG is there, that time HB should be there.
Okay. And colitis causes, Dayanand Noli sir is asking.
So I couldn't get, sir. What is the question, sir?
Colitis.
Causes of colitis, sir?
Yeah.
Sir, I'm not very sure, sir.
It can be Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, non-specific colitis.
Amoebic colitis, then pseudomembranous enterocolitis, antibiotic
Ischemic also. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
ischemic colitis.
Yeah, correct. Okay, continue.
Yes, sir.
Janani,
yes, sir.
You have to elaborate on this colitis because in India
we'll be dealing with individual causes in the next class, sir.
Okay, done.
Yes, sir.
Done. Okay,
yes, sir.
Then go ahead.
So now management of antithrombotics, the risk of ongoing bleeding and the risk of thromboembolic event in patients who are on antithrombotics is to be considered. So it is a multidisciplinary approach, including involving hematologists, cardiologists, neurologists, or gastroenterologists to deal with whether to stop or continue the medications. The platelet transfusion, the target platelet level has to be above 50,000. If the INR is less than 2.5, it is favorable for doing endoscopy. So reversal of anticoagulant effect is indicated if ongoing severe bleeding is there, if INR is more than 2.5. And these are the reversal agents used for individual antithrombotics. For warfarin, vitamin K plus prothrombin complex concentrate has to be given. Prothrombin complex concentrate contains factor 2, 9, and 10. And prothrombin concentrate, complex concentrate is used for almost all direct acting anticoagulants. All direct oral acting anticoagulants are factor 10A inhibitors. So we can use prothrombin complex concentrate in them. For dabigatran, that is direct thrombin inhibitor, idarucizumab is the newer drug that is useful, or we could consider hemodialysis in such patients. For low molecular weight heparins like enoxaparin, we could use protamine 1 mg per gram, or we could also use protamine 1 mg per 100. For maximum of 50 mg can be used in such patients.
1 second, hold on.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ramakrishna sir is asking a question. Is if patient is on antiplatelet agents, do you stop or continue?
Sir, next slide I'm going to talk about it, sir.
Okay. Here, you said about dabigatran. One
Yes,
more
sir.
thing is if patient presents to you within 2 hours of consumption of dabigatran, you can use, and this thing is in profusely bleeding, you can try reversing the effect by giving oral charcoal.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
And
So
there is
for-
one more question. There is one more question.
Yes,
You
sir.
put rice tube in lower GI bleeding.
Sir, we'll put Ryle's tube, sir. One thing is for preparing the patient for colonoscopy, and to see if any brisk, any dark colored secretion is coming out, so that we could rule out upper GI bleeding also in such cases.
Only when you are considering brisk upper GI bleeding, you can evaluate by putting a Ryle's tube, and if it shows blood, then doing an endoscopy will be more useful than doing a colonoscopy first.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir Dayanand Nuli, sir, that will that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
And Mahesh sir is also asking one more question.
Yes, sir.
Do you consider doing upper GI endoscopy in all your lower GI patients?
No, sir. Well, in all patients, we won't. If we suspect, that is, if patient is having hemodynamic instability with frank hematochezia, we can do upper GI bleed, or other things as I discussed before, like elevated bun creatinine ratio, or when we pass Ryle's tube, that is whether brisk red
One more
or some.
consideration is if your CT initial, if the patient has presented to you within the 4 hours of presenting with an upper with an episode of GI bleed, lower
Yes, sir.
GI bleed, and if you do a CT scan and CT angio, and if it doesn't show any evidence of active bleeding, then you consider upper GI endoscopy, doing upper GI endoscopy, because most of the times it can be an upper GI bleed.
Okay, sir.
Okay, continue.
Yes, sir. So for thrombolytics, we use cryoprecipitate, and for antiplatelet agents, we use platelets, or desmopressin is also used for such patients. So a recommendation for medicines, that is to stop, whether to stop the medication or when to restart the medication. For non-aspirin NSAIDs, we'll discontinue without any rethinking. And for antiplatelet agents, if a patient is taking aspirin alone for primary prophylaxis, we'll discontinue in most of the patients. Or if the patient is taking for secondary prophylaxis, when severe bleeding or when patient is in high risk, we'll discontinue and resume it after 7 days. After
What do you
7
mean
days
by
of
primary and secondary prophylaxis?
The primary prophylaxis before the patient is having the disease, sir. When they suspect if patient might get ischemic heart disease or stroke in future, if they some patients will be started with aspirin or clopidogrel before the disease, that is called primary prophylaxis. After the diagnosis of the particular disease, if it is started, it is secondary prophylaxis.
Okay, continue.
Yes, sir. So, if the patient is on dual antiplatelet therapy, during high risk period, that is first 30 days, here as I mentioned, first 30 days following coronary stenting, or during first 90 days following acute coronary syndrome, we should continue the dual antiplatelet therapy despite of bleeding, because the risk of thromboembolic event is more if we stop the drug. After the risk period, after 90 days or 30 days following coronary stenting, we could discontinue the second non-aspirin antiplatelet. that is, if patient is on clopidogrel, we could discontinue the second thing, and we could continue the aspirin alone for up to 7 days, and we could resume the entire dual antiplatelet therapy after 7 days in such patients. So if patient is on anticoagulants, the use of reversal agents is always considered if PTINR is above 2.5. However, the heparin bridge, if we could continue with the heparin bridge, according to literature, it is very much ineffective in such cases. So it is always preferred to discontinue in severe bleeding or when patient is in hemodynamic instability, and we could resume the drugs after 7 days. Sir, any doubts in this, sir? Anybody, any doubts in this? Can I continue, sir?
Yes, I think you can. Yeah.
Janani?
Sure, sir. Yeah, wait.
Yes, sir.
No, what is the bridge therapy? Can you explain a little more?
Sir, when patient is put off on anticoagulants in such cases, patient will be given low molecular weight heparin, sir, till the usual regime is continued. Low molecular weight heparin could be continued in such cases, but it is not equivalent to anticoagulants. According to the reviews, whatever I read, it is not equivalent to anticoagulant effect, it seems, sir. So there is no point in continuing heparin bridge, it seems. That is what I learned, sir. I don't know.
That is one, and also it will increase the risk of bleeding as well. So
Yes,
if
sir.
the INR is more than 2.5, you better stop those anticoagulants.
Yes, sir.
No, this decision has to be taken along with the cardiologist. Otherwise,
Yes,
there may be some other effect and patient may go to court or something.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Yes.
So don't take decision surgeon only. It has to be decided along with the cardiologist. And there is a role for bridge therapy.
Okay, sir.
You can reverse it as quickly as possible if the patient is on heparin.
Okay, sir.
You cannot reverse this as quickly as possible.
Okay, sir. Okay. Yes, sir.
Right.
Can I go ahead, sir?
Yes.
So diagnostic modalities, first and foremost is colonoscopy and CT, contrast enhanced CT or CT angiography, nuclear scanning, capsule endoscopy, push enteroscopy, and intraoperative enteroscopy. Colonoscopy is both diagnostic and therapeutic tool. The goal is to identify the site of bleeding and perform hemostasis if indicated. The diagnostic yield ranges from 48 to 90%. Colonoscope contains large working channel and it is usually preferred for facilitating both suctioning of blood clots or residual stool and the large hemostasis tool. It is the most important thing in colonoscope. Before doing colonoscopy, bowel preparation is must. It facilitates endoscopic visualization and proper diagnosis. It may reduce the risk of bowel perforation. Usually high rates of definitive diagnosis is achieved, that is 22 to 42%, and hemostasis can also be achieved by colonoscopic interventions in 34% of cases. Around 1/3 of patients need urgent colonoscopy, so patient has to be put on nasogastric tube to facilitate gastric emptying.
Janani?
Sir, yes, sir.
There are two major problems with colonoscopy. Can you tell them what are the two major problems with colonoscopy?
Yes, sir. Aspiration pneumonia and fluid electrolyte abnormalities.
No, not that. See, the first thing is in patients who have, significant GI bleed.
Yes, sir.
Where they are not stable, you cannot give them bowel preparation. So that is almost impossible to give bowel preparation in patients who are unstable. And second thing is, you are going upstream,
yes,
and
sir.
so the blood is coming from above. So your visualization, and if there is stools also, visualization and accurate diagnosis is very, very compromised. So
Yes, sir.
colonoscopy is not a good tool if the patient is ongoing, if there is ongoing bleed and the patient is not stable.
Okay,
if the
sir.
patient has had GI bleed but the patient is stable, then you can give bowel preparation and then do a colonoscopy. So it
Yes,
has
sir.
its limitations.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the complication of the bowel preparations are expected complications like aspiration pneumonia and fluid electrolyte abnormalities. In case of urgent colonoscopy, that is usually done in 1/3 of patients presenting with gastrointestinal bleeding. It is used to facilitate, nasogastric tube is always used to facilitate rapid bowel preparation. And in such cases, antiemetic or prokinetic agents can be used to prevent, to facilitate gastric emptying. So there are various studies which was conducted to analyze whether urgent colonoscopy is better or the normal elective colonoscopy is better. And most of these studies were favored, like if colonoscopy is done less than 8 hours or 12 hours, it is always giving more definitive diagnosis than the elective colonoscopy. But the disadvantages with unprepared bowel is low cecal intubation rates and poor visualization and risk of perforation, as sir had mentioned already.
So you have to weigh the risks and benefits. Okay. So if the patient is unstable, you have preferable to do within 24 hours by giving a rapid purge bowel preparation. Okay. If patient is stable and probably the bleeding seems to have stopped, then you can do an elective colonoscopy after resuscitating the patient with blood transfusion.
Yes, sir.
And proper bowel preparation.
Yes, sir.
Ajit is asking, what is normal cecal intubation rate?
Sir, no, sir, I don't know, sir.
Ajit, be very specific. In lower GI bleed cases or regular cases?
Lower GI bleed cases, sir.
Yeah. You want to answer?
Or no, I don't know the answer, sir.
It's around 25 to 30%.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So,
to everyone, please avoid too many questions here. I'm unable to follow the presentations. Please.
Okay. We'll ask questions in the last this thing.
Yeah, too many questions, unable to follow the presentations.
Yes, sir. So non-colonoscopic investigations in setting of presumed acute lower GI bleed, radiographic modalities can be used. So contrast enhanced CT, the detection rate ranges from 35.7% versus colonoscopy, which is 20.6%. The ongoing bleed in acute lower GI bleed is due to will be find out like extravasation in contrast enhanced CT. So patients presenting within 4 hours of last hematochezia are candidates for urgent CT because of higher sensitivity than those examined after 4 hours. So many studies compare the uses of urgent colonoscopy, elective colonoscopy, tagged RBC scan followed by angiography. So urgent colonoscopy arm is always more definitive with regard to diagnosis and therapeutic intervention. CT angiography with brisk ongoing hematochezia, which precludes acute hemodynamic resuscitation and bowel preparation before colonoscopy. In such group, angiography localizes lower GI bleed source in 20 to 70% of cases. Super selective embolization can be done while performing CT angiography, which achieves immediate hemostasis in 40 to 100% of bleeding cases.
But that you're wrong. That super selective embolization is in regular angiography. You're talking about CT angiography here.
Okay, sir. Sorry, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So, but the disadvantage with this embolization is risk of ischemia in 1/3 of cases. Yes, sir.
No, this is not CT angiography.
Yes, sir. Disadvantage with this embolization technique, sir.
Yeah, your heading is wrong. You're talking about regular angiography, not CT angiography.
Okay, sir. Okay. Yes, sir. So the risk of ischemia is high in 1/3 of patients, and also the cost of this angiography procedure is high. Thus, angiography is to be reserved for patients with high risk ongoing bleeding. And the use of tagged RBC scintigraphy. Tagged RBC scintigraphy is to localize gastrointestinal bleeding before CT angiography. Some studies suggest screening tagged RBC scintigraphy increases diagnostic yield of angiography. The advantage of this is ability to perform repeated scans after initial injection of tagged cells. This makes RBC scintigraphy more suitable for obscure or overt GI bleeding. And capsule endoscopy is a non-invasive method of visualizing entire small bowel in chronic gastrointestinal bleeding. The diagnostic yield ranges from 60 to 70%, but the disadvantage is it is only diagnostic but time consuming. The availability of capsule endoscopy everywhere is not feasible, and the cost is also high. And the complication is capsule retention. And one more disadvantage with this is it will take multiple photographs of pictures of multiple views. There are chances of missing out the important bleeding location in such cases.
Generally, it is never done in acute GI bleed, lower GI bleeding. It is done for obscure GI bleeds.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Chronic obscure GI bleeding. Yes, sir. And push enteroscopy, it utilizes long endoscopes, that is enteroscopes, and it will visualize 60 to 80 centimeters. Antegrade and retrograde examination can be done. Antegrade is we'll do push enteroscopy through the oral cavity, and retrograde is through the rectum. Visualizes entire small bowel. The diagnostic yield ranges from 50 to 70%. It is both diagnostic and therapeutic. The disadvantage is again cost, availability, and need for specialist every time. Intraoperative enteroscopy, it is an easily available modality which can be performed by general surgeon with standard colonoscope that is available everywhere. Ability of detecting bleeding ranges from 70 to 100%, but the limitations include the morbidity associated with enterotomy. These are the few pictures.
Yes, go back. Intraoperative enteroscopy role comes when only when you're doing surgery. Most of majority of the lower GI bleeds today are managed either conservatively or by endoscopic or by interventional radiology methods.
Yes, sir.
Surgical role comes in after you have evaluated thoroughly, and if any of the above modalities fail or they are not available and patient is highly unstable.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then only the role of intraoperative enteroscopy comes.
Yes, sir.
Or if the source of bleeding is a malignancy.
Yes, sir.
Okay, go on.
Sir, this is the intraoperative endoscopy that is performed. Usually it is with a standard colonoscope, whatever we use, between the blood-filled segment. First, we'll do first step is to do laparotomy, and we'll inspect the bowel. With the blood-filled discolored segment, we could identify the blood-filled distal segment, and the normal bowel segment will be identified. In between the blood-filled and non-blood-filled segment, we'll pass our colonoscope. We'll make a rent and pass our colonoscope. So we'll be able to visualize the entire small bowel in this. And here bleeding point is detected in the, it is transilluminated here. So colonoscope, this is colonoscopic view of bleeding point. After this, we will, sir?
What is that bleeding point?
So which one, sir?
What you're showing, what is it?
So this is the colonoscopic view of bleeding. It's a jejunal bleed, sir.
What is it?
Which one?
Diagnosis.
Yes, sir. So diagnosis is dual of first lesion, sir.
Yes.
Sir, after identifying this bleeding point, we'll do resection anastomosis of this segment, and we'll send it for histopathology. So it is both diagnostic and therapeutic here, and we could identify the type of lesion also. So that is the advantage with this intraoperative enteroscopy. Sir, any questions till this?
Yeah, before going in for summary, I think few questions are there or comments are there in the chat box. Dayanand Noli sir is asking therapeutic measures by colonoscopy.
Sir, if a bleeding point is identified, we could do clipping and clipping or the procedures like to stop bleeding, sir, cauterization or clipping.
During the treatment options, no?
So which one, sir?
The management of colonoscopy bleeding, you can.
Yeah, we'll be talking about in individual management.
Yes, sir. Individual management.
Describe it in the treatment.
Yeah. Giridhar Saraswat sir is commented that CTA can detect bleeding rates as low as 0.3 ml per minute.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And Sheena Wadhwa is asking, aspirin was to be discontinued as primary or secondary prophylaxis, even if in risk period, query, or any antiplatelet, single or dual, to be continued in risk period. Can you be more clear? Can you ask the question directly? Sheena, Dr. Sheena.
Yes, sir. Actually, I was asking in that diagram, in that flow chart that she had drawn, she had written for aspirin, whether it's single primary prophylaxis or secondary, it has to be mostly discontinued if there's severe. And dual antiplatelet agent, she had written that during high risk period, if it's there, we need to continue aspirin and close off, continue both and then close off clopidogrel after the. So what I don't understand was that if aspirin is there, only aspirin, do we continue it in the risk period or we don't?
No, it depends why you are using aspirin. If you're using aspirin just as a prophylaxis, where it is found to be of no use, like for diabetics and hypertension, most of the patients will be put on aspirin prophylaxis, and that has induced GI bleeding, you can discontinue. If they are only on single antiplatelet agent aspirin, and if they are in that non-risk period of either first 30 days after following a coronary stenting or during the first 90 days following an acute coronary syndrome, you can continue aspirin. If the patient is on dual antiplatelet therapy, at least aspirin you have to continue, or preferably you have to continue both. If the patient continues to have very profuse bleeding, you can try stopping a non-aspirin antiplatelet drug.
Okay, so thank you.
Yeah. There is, I think, one more comment. Again by Dr. Giridhar Ashwath. Nuclear scintigraphy most sensitive for detecting J bleed rate less than 0.05 ml per minute. We agree. But Janani, what is the disadvantage or of that technetium 99 scan?
Sir, disadvantage, the high cost, sir, first one, and the availability.
It is not costly. It doesn't have that high cost. It is cheaper than your CT angiogram or this thing. Major disadvantage is it only detects that whether there is any active bleeding or not.
Okay.
Exact site of bleeding is not detected, and it is detected only in less than 25% of the cases, because it only gives you the location in the abdomen. It doesn't give you the exact site of bleeding. It doesn't give you whether it is in the jejunum, duodenum, or colon. It just gives you the approximate site.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And the one more thing is, it is used as a complementary method of investigation. It is never used as an isolated method of detecting GI bleeding.
Okay. Okay, sir.
It is useful to detect whether there is an active GI bleed or not.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Okay. Okay, continue.
Yes, sir.
And before that, so I think if we'll ask randomly some of our PGs to summarize before you summarize.
Okay, sir.
We'll start off with the first years. Pawan, what did you understand? What is the cause of GI bleeding in India or abroad? Most common causes.
Some non-specific ulcers, sir.
Huh? Okay.
Non-specific ulcers, sir.
Okay, continue. You can summarize whatever she has spoken till now. Can you summarize?
First of all, the lower GI bleeding means the bleeding which occurs below the ligament of Treach, sir.
Okay.
And the most common causes are that non-specific ulcers,
okay.
and diverticulosis, angiodysplasia, like that, sir.
Okay.
And regarding how so Oakland classification is there, how you can categorize the patient like that risk based on the risk and all.
Okay.
Sir.
Okay, continue.
Niranjan, let her continue. Finish off.
Yeah. Okay, Janani, continue.
So to classify, based on the clinical assessment, vital signs and laboratory tests, we'll stratify patients into high-risk patients and low-risk patients. High-risk patients, we should immediately resuscitate with IV fluids, and if indicated, blood product transfusion has to be considered. And there is, we should first do colonoscopy or sigmoidoscopy in such cases, and we should identify the bleeding point. If the patient remains hemodynamically unstable, the radiographic interventions, radiographic investigations can be used, like CT or CT angiography could be considered. Hemodynamically, patient, if they get stabilized hemodynamically, we could perform colonoscopy if it is less than 24 hours from presentation. So we could we could take time to prepare the bowel, and we could do colonoscopy in such cases. In case of low risk patients, we'll resuscitate if needed with IV fluids, and if patient becomes unstable, we'll perform colonoscopy if it is less than 24 hours of presentation after hemodynamic resuscitation. And if patient is stable, we'll perform elective colonoscopy after doing proper bowel preparation. So we'll first try to achieve endoscopic hemostasis for high-risk cases, and the repeat colonoscopy has to be considered to avoid recurrent bleeding or to diagnose the evidence of recurrent bleeding earlier. And again, the drugs, as we discussed now, so we should do multidisciplinary approach, considering cardiologist opinion, neurologist and gastroenterologist opinion, while stopping or continuing with any antiplatelets or anticoagulant therapies. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Postgraduates, anybody has any questions, comments? No?
No, sir.
Yes. If nobody has any comments, seniors, Ravi Shankar sir.
The main thing that one has to remember with lower GI bleed compared to upper GI bleed is endoscopy is mandatory very early in upper GI bleed and not so in lower GI bleed. And especially if patient is stable, you can wait and get bowel preparation and then do the colonoscopy. If the patient is unstable, colonoscopy is useless anyway, so you don't do it. I think you should resort to radiological investigations, because you can also do therapeutic intervention with the same. So that is the essential difference between the two.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Shivaram sir.
Agreed. See, most of these days, patients are on anticoagulants, and that may be the aggravating factors. So history taking is very, very important in these patients, because there is nothing much to examine, but history can really reveal a lot of things in the lower GI bleed. That's very, very important. Otherwise, well done, Dr. Janani.
Thank you, sir.
Noli sir.
No, sir. She has covered almost. Only thing is little more causes like radiation enteritis or rectal varices that can be dealt afterwards. You told in the next this one.
Yes, yes.
Otherwise,
Individual
it was good,
causes.
sir. Yeah, yeah.